It is a good day, friends, and I welcome you to Our Power is Within. I am your host, Chasmith, aka Just Chaz, and I am on a mission to inspire people to take their power back and to help people to realize that each and every one of us has a healer within our own self. When we can create an environment that supports healing and get out of our own way, we are truly capable of healing in mind, body, and soul. Whether you've been following along this whole time or if this is your very first episode, thank you for being on this journey with me. And if you could take a minute to help me spread the message of empowerment, healing, and possibility, it would truly mean the world to me. Ways that you can help support this podcast and spread this message are by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating if and only if I've earned it, or sharing your favorite episode on social media or with a friend, and tag me at Our Power is Within. So, how did walking backwards go for you in the past week? Did you enjoy it? Did you find it easy or challenging? I don't know. I find it quite fun myself, but maybe that's just me. So this week's challenge, as usual, and sometimes, is going to be a little different. I am going to challenge each of you listening to make a commitment to yourself, to check in with yourself at least 5 times per day. And a way you can do this is say to yourself, how am I feeling right now? And then just be with yourself for a moment. Be an observer and just notice. Can you put a name to an emotion you're feeling? Or is there a body sensation? And does that body sensation relate to an emotion? Can you feel your feet on the ground? How are you breathing? If you need to, you can set an alarm 5 times throughout the day as reminders, or like put little reminders in your phone or little notes maybe in front of your office desk, whatever you need to do to help remind you to stop and pause 5 times throughout the day and help you to remember to check in with you. I personally will probably have to set the alarms in my phone because otherwise I admittingly might forget. And I really personally want to get better at doing this more regularly until it becomes a habit. So I hope you will join me for the next week and practice this with me. See how it feels and see what happens, and see if you start to feel more connected and present, or notice more what's happening in your body, your mind, your mood, and how it all relates together. Our guest today is Dr. Ryan Wohlfert. And today's chat was so much fun. We talk about holistic well-being. We talk about steps that we can take to overcome chronic pain. And we also talk about how we can sustain our well-being through preventative care, otherwise known as self-care. We talk about and discuss going from chronic pain back into high performance. And we also talk about how high performance does not necessarily mean that it's, something that's only related to athletes. High performance can be different for everyone. And, each person can have their own area of their life that they want to be able to perform or excel. So what I really love most about our chat today, though, with Dr. Ryan is that he gives these really wonderful, simple, and practical tools that we can actually begin implementing and experimenting with immediately. One set of tools he calls the ABCs, and you will learn so much more about this from him today, just as I did. And to top it off, Dr. Ryan is also willing to extend a wonderful free gift to anyone listening. He will do a 20-minute free virtual house call with him, and he will share more about all of this in the episode today. And you will find links to this 20-minute virtual house call in the show notes. So check it out, connect with him, join his Facebook group. It's very fun. I love it. It's inspiring. I really love so many of the posts he does and his videos, and he's very interactive. So I hope you will join us in that group, Be Your Own Guarantee. You'll find links for that in the show notes as well. And I hope you enjoy today's episode. All right, Ryan, thank you for being here and welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me, Chasmith.
Absolutely. So, for anyone who's not quite familiar with who you are just yet, and I'm introducing you to the world, I want to just kind of explain to them that you are a chiropractor by nature. You have, however, really expanded your field of research and understanding that the body is a complex system interconnected with the mind, and that healing and well-being requires a very holistic approach addressing not only physical, but also emotional, mental, and spiritual.
Yes, yes, and it's been I've been doing it for like just health for I would say almost all my life, but yeah, professionally over the last 20 plus years. So yeah, it's been I, I want to say it's been backwards of how I would actually approach it, but it's definitely the journey that I had to take to get to where I am right now.
Okay, awesome. So it's interesting. You said you've been focused on health all your life and then professionally the last 20 years. I'm always so curious what drives people to have these really passionate, strong focuses. I mean, there's usually a reason that we become really focused on something, especially so young. So do you have like kind of your own story that led you down that path or drove you to be super passionate about health in general?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I mean, I was always active as a kid. I have an older brother, two younger brothers, so we were always, I grew up in the like country life, not much around. The nearest, I always say the nearest McDonald's was 20 minutes away. So,
Wow.
home cooked meals, just a strong work ethic from my mom and dad. Not like they weren't into health or anything, but me and my older brother would just be out in the backyard playing sports and one-on-one basketball, wiffle ball, baseball, all these different things. And it just I grew a love of that because that's the culture that I was part of. And then that grew into like more even like health and issues I was having, because as I look back and I tell this story a lot, I was sick all the time, even though I was active in the fitness realm, and even nutrition was pretty good back then. And this was in the 80s and early 90s. I I was sick a lot, just runny nose, sinus, congestion, infections, and it felt like it was all the time. So my immune system was not working, but it didn't stop me from doing anything, and I don't remember taking any medications. I remember my mom saying, "It's a cold. You don't need to go to the doctor." So again, I was blessed with them being like not taking me to the doctor for every single sniffle or whatever was going on. So as time went on, that improved somewhat, but really where I think everything, I want to say changed or was a pivot point, was I remember sitting in one of my classes in the 8th grade, and I was 13 years old, and I looked down at my page to read, and I couldn't see the words. There was this spot in the way. This, like if you look at the sun or the light, there was a spot, but it just didn't go away. And then all of a sudden, my hand, the right side of my body gets tingly. My foot gets tingly. And then about 5 to 10 minutes after that, I tried to speak, and just the words wouldn't come out. It was like I could think, I could, move, but it was like I felt disillusioned as I look back at it. And then right after that, about a half hour from that first symptom to that not being able to talk, that's when I got my first migraine headache. And at 13 years old, 8th grade, I didn't know what the heck it was. And I just went home and slept. And I'm assuming, again, I can't remember, but at the time, my mom would give me Tylenol or some sort of over the counter for a headache. Not too often, but this one was one I had never had before. So after a few days, it went away. And then the next week, what do you think happened? It happened again. So I got those spots, I got the tingly, and then I was at school. So I went down to the school office and I asked the secretary. And it's funny, I just saw her this weekend because she's the mom of one of my best friends. And I told her, "Kathy, your name comes up a lot when I'm doing interviews," because I tell this story to help people understand, like, even the spiritual aspect, that's where it comes in, is being directed in a certain path. So anyway, back to the story. I knew this headache was about to come, and I asked her, Mrs. Arntz, do you have any Tylenol? Because I'm about to get a huge headache. And so what she said, and this is where the whole spiritual part of it comes in. I didn't know it at the time, but she said, you know what? I can't give you that, which, thank God, I don't know if that's the way it is in schools anymore, but I can't give you that. But what it sounds like is you have a pinched nerve. You should go see a chiropractor. So she called my mom. My mom came pick me up. Mrs. Arntz called her chiropractor, said that, my mom was going to be bringing me, and she took me there. And it wasn't like right then, like, oh my God, after I got my x-rays, the doctor showed me exactly what was happening and why I was getting the symptoms I was. And I remember him saying, Ryan, your head's on crooked. I just remember that too. And then he, showed me and my mom exactly what was going on. He gave me my first adjustment, and it was like fireworks went off, all the circulation coming back to my face and body. And he's like, all right, here's the plan. And ever since then, I've been, going to see a doctor of chiropractic. And I tell people, it wasn't right then. I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going into. But it was part of the process. It was part of what I had learned, that, just like your podcast title, Our Power is Within. That was one of my first exposures to it cognitively, like, okay. And him explaining that. And all through high school, I did that. I kept it with my fitness, my nutrition. I was always one that wanted to gain muscle. It was hard for me to gain weight. I was just a skinny kid. So I do my nutrition wasn't the best at that time. That's what I learned later. So again, this is what I want to implore on the listeners in your audience is it takes time. And just like how you said, a lot of, your listeners have been through it all and they've tried everything. And it does most of the time come back. And I would say all the time we have to address all these different areas, but we definitely need to address the mind and the brain and the connection to the body. And I learned that probably even later on. So that's how I got started in my journey. But just to end with this part of that is, up until my senior year of high school, I was going to be a mechanical engineer. So pretty much not the total opposite, but on the opposite end of health and fitness and that sort of field. But then a teacher of mine told me about kinesiology. I was like, man, what is that? And I know you're an athlete too, Chasmith. I'm an athlete. I'm still an athlete. And what intrigued me was he told me about his son who would do these different exercises to connect the brain to the body at the highest maximum performance level, like for a couple hours before he went to pitch in a big game. And I'm like, man, that sounds awesome. So that led me down the path of going into kinesiology, movement science in college at University of Michigan. And then I just kept progressing from there.
Okay. Yeah. That's so funny because you ended up becoming a chiropractor by nature at first because, kinesiology and then into chiropractic, and you had that experience where it helped you. So
exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
That makes so much sense. But so, fast forward, now you've really expanded your practice. You're not just like, people think chiropractor, and many of them, you go in and they focus just on the central nervous system, the spine. And then, sure, they're different than your regular doctor where they tell you, hey, eat well or do this or do that, or, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're really approaching healing with their clients through an overarching holistic approach. And from what I've gathered from us talking and all of that, it really seems like you really do approach everything holistically. And you also have this familiarity, like you already said, with understanding the role the brain and the mind and, the emotions play in our body and our well-being. And so how did you kind of come across learning about, like, say, Dr. Sarno, for example? At what point did you start to learn about him and that work with the TMS mind-body syndrome community?
It was actually, so after I graduated from chiropractic college in 2000, I moved to North Carolina, and I'm from Michigan in the Midwest. My wife is from Chicago area, Midwest, and we met in chiropractic college. I graduated a little bit before her, and we had always said, we never want to, be in the Midwest. We want to move somewhere warmer, and we weren't married at the time, and so I moved down there and I started or bought a practice there. Well, fast forward 6 years, we got married, had a couple of kids, and like, you know what, we want to get back to family. So we moved back up to Michigan and bought a practice here in 2007. And that's when I started learning more about it, because who we took over for, who we bought the practice from, he talked about that and TMS and showing how, like, if you continually focus on just like the area of pain, or if you give the attention to it, it's going to keep happening over and over again, and how the mind and the brain creates this program, creates these neurotags. And that's lately, that's what I've learned about it, is where if you continually building that, that's going to keep getting stronger. Mm-hmm. So again, it's been a process of implementing that, because it wasn't until about 6 or 7 or 8 years later did I actually find a system that resonated with me, but then how I can teach it through not just the science, but also the neurology and the spirituality of it, how the emotions and how your brain plays a role in how you actually feel. And that was through the Eliminate Your Limit system, EYL it's called. Mentor of mine, Brian Grasso, who I'd known for years, just happened to pop up back into my life again with this. And he started the Mindset Performance Institute, and has since gone on to, again, this EYL system. And I continue to implement it. And where I focus heavily on it is, in the brick and mortar somewhat, in more of a passive way, and trying to help people understand, just because I'm not touching where you're hurt, doesn't mean that we're not doing things to help improve how you feel and how you move and how you function. And that can be a tricky thing for a lot of people. It's not like we just throw everything out and just work on the brain, but it's definitely a piece of the puzzle that we have to incorporate in. So I've done that a lot with online programs. I've done that more with like online coaching throughout the country. So that's where that has come into play, because I've seen how it ties everything together. Because unless we have the foundation of where our focus goes, of what our brain is doing, we can do all the physical things that we want. It will have some effectiveness, but it's not going to have a sustainable simplicity to it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And I was actually going to ask you how, when you learn all this and it really sticks with you and it really makes sense to you. I've experienced this from communicating with other doctors of chiropractic, or doctors who specialize in like active release technique, or just different things that truly do focus on the body. Sometimes you get clients and they're there because they're convinced that they have just a physiological problem, and they want that, not necessarily, well, we all want the quick fix, but I mean, deep down, but they're there because they want you to fix. They have been convinced that you cracking their spine, or, doing a release to a certain muscle is going to fix them. And it can be an interesting approach to have to communicate with them if you really feel intuitively that their issue might be deeper than the physical. So how do you navigate that world when you get somebody who you really believe that it's not going to be, like chiropractic that's going to fix them, but other maybe emotional work or something, some deeper layer of work? How do you like find that balance of communicating that with them when so many people go in with such a fixed mindset about what it is that they could be in resistance?
Well, it starts from day one, just with the education part of it. You can't, and that's what we've learned, through the neurology of coaching, and that's part of the whole EYL system, is you can't tell anybody what to believe, or what to do. It's a process, just like with you and I. It's not something that we learned, boom, this is how it works. Because I went through this too, where I would do the even the NLP, where like saying it with emotion and thinking positively. But if there's this cognitive dissonance between the front brain and the back brain with what you believe, then you're only going to get so far. But so it starts day one with education. And there's a difference between addressing and then focusing on. We want to address their issues. We explain how the spine especially is directly related to their overall health and fitness, and how it's all interconnected. The brain sends energy down through the spine and spinal cord, the spinal cord, which is inside the spine and protected by the spine. And all these nerves go to every single cell, tissue, and organ in your body. So I like to use analogies to where, again, we have to, if they come in for a physical thing, again, we have to meet them where they're at, because if we try to, and that's one of the things I have to watch out for with myself, is this knowledge that we gain and the experience that we gain. You just want to like have a verbal vomit over them, like, here, this is what you do. But we have to hold ourselves back and take them step by step through that process. So showing them how exactly the brain, nervous system, spine is related to maybe the stomach aches that they're having, maybe not just the pain, but also overall health and function of the organs. So that's part of the process. The education continues throughout, because really, let's say they come in for 4 weeks. That's just a getting to know you, getting their brain, almost in a safe place, to where now they're definitely more open to learning more about how their emotions can play a role. Because I can't tell you how many times, and these are like existing patients that I've had for, months, years, decades, where as I'm, working on their body, and they understand this because I've spoken to them about it. If they're not adjusting, let's say, let's use that term, as well as I had, 10, 15, 20, 100 times previously, I ask them, are you stressed out? Because more often than not, almost every time, there's some sort of mental stress, emotional stress going on. And that's almost proof right there to them that it's not just a physical thing. If it's a physical thing, man, their body heals, no problem. Their body adjusts and treats, and we help to relax the muscles and improve their posture much easier. But if there's something that's mental / emotional that's gunking up the system, we can feel it in their physiology, or at least I can feel it in their physiology, where it's just things aren't moving. They don't look like they have in the past. So that's how the emotions can tie into that. But to answer your question, like, how do we go from physical to, okay, now it's a mental or emotional issue that's actually causing it? And I go through, and I'll let you interject here before I go through this, is because this is something I want to teach the listeners, and I've been teaching people online and in the office, is just like the whole stress bucket analogy, of how things in our lives add stress to our bodies and our brains, and our brain is there to protect us. And if it feels like it's at threat, it's going to cause a response if our brain can't handle it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Do you have steps for this, you're saying?
Well, and I like to keep it simple for people, and just, your brain is this loop. Think about it like this loop where we're receiving inputs. The brain is receiving inputs. Like, I think it's like 400 billion per every moment, every second. There's 400 billion pieces of information either coming into your body or that's in your body that your brain has to keep track of. And it has to go through a filtering process to find out, okay, what is the most important thing that I have to deal with? Or the 7 things out of that 4 billion or 400 billion that it has to address right now. Mm-hmm. So it interprets those inputs, and then it creates an output based on that interpretation. The number one goal for your brain is to keep you safe.
Yep.
So if it thinks that there's a threat, whether it's real or imagined or thought about, it's going to treat it as a stress. It doesn't matter if you're falling out of an airplane without a parachute or with a parachute. it's going to treat it as a stress until that parachute opens. It's going to treat it as a threat. So if it's in that threat state and it has this stress, and this could be a physical stress, an emotional stress, a mental stress, a spiritual stress, any of these, put drops in the bucket. So physical stress, what am I talking about with that? It could be poor posture, bad sleep, medications, they have put stress on the body. It could be like even the toxins that we're exposed to on a daily basis with foods, industrial toxins and chemicals. So these physical things, and that could even be a chemical thing, whereas the foods, the toxins, infections, mental and emotional stress. Because when I say stress, I would venture to say I'm confident that most people automatically think, okay, well, no, I'm not stressed out. And when I say stress, I mean it's the big umbrella: mental, emotional, but also chemical, physical, spiritual type things. And these things lie in the weeds sometimes. You don't know that they're there because there's you have a reserve, or you have this bucket that the bucket represents your brain and nervous system. So anytime that your brain is perceiving a threat or a stress, a drop goes in the bucket from one, or usually it's multiple sources. That's why we can't just focus on one thing. We have to address multiple things. Disease is not just a one factor. It's a multifactorial thing, especially when we're talking about pain and chronic pain, headaches, migraines, low energy. So it puts these drops in the bucket. Now, here's your brain's perfect design. It's there to protect you. And if it thinks, or if this water level gets too high, like too close to the top, it thinks it's going to die, and it thinks you're going to die. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen, about 2/3 of the way up that bucket, there's a valve, or a release valve, or a spigot, or a spout. So as that stress level comes up, and it's too much, day to day, these chronic repetitive stressors or threats, whether they're physical, chemical, or emotional, it fills it up. Now, what happens is, if it gets to that spigot level or that valve level, it lets some of that water out because it doesn't want to get up to that top spot to where it thinks it's going to die, right? So it lets it out, and it's not like, whew, the brain's like, all right, you're safe. Nothing's wrong. No, it's not just getting rid of the stress. It's giving your body a response. So it says, hey, look over here, red flag, white flag, whatever you want to say. I need you to do something. And what that response can be, it could be a physical response, like actually physical pain, headaches, low back pain, knee pain, stomach pain, whatever it is. It could be some sort of emotional response where you're anxious, where you're sad, you get depressed. It's all the same mechanism, but the response can be different. It could be inflammation in your body. It could be an infection, just to get your attention and say, there's something happening here. I need you to do something about this. And the cool part is, you can do something about it. You can increase that threshold of what your body can handle through the system that I teach, ABC, or the EYL mindset system that we'll, I'm sure, go over here in a second. But how to train your brain to decrease that level of threat, but then also improving how your body functions through how you breathe, through how you move, through how you how you stand, those things. So that's how the brain and body, how your mind and body are related, and how I've learned how to incorporate all of these into one thing, where it's not just, okay, it's not just you. If you have knee pain, well, it's all in the brain, then you shouldn't, go for a walk, or you shouldn't do exercises for it, because then you're going to train your brain that, no, the actual problem is in the knee. There's a happy medium, there's a happy balance, and that's what life and health is about, between the physical and the emotional. Mm-hmm. And we can combine those together by just reframing how we're thinking about the things that we are doing.
Right. Yeah. I like your analogy. That's really fun. I really also like that you made mention of um, how, like, this recovery journey or healing is really about not only decreasing the threat, but improving the threshold. That's so important because, yeah, because I think a lot of times we can get really like stuck on the fact of like, hey, we're just trying to eliminate the threat or we're just trying to change this. But as you said, it's like, well, hey, let's not just lower that level of the bucket, but like, let's also increase how tall the bucket is capable of being at the same time. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. And then we can increase the level of that spout coming out too,
Yeah.
which can increase our
Right.
threshold. And yeah, resilience and threshold and lifestyle, those are all my like very favorite concepts and principles and words to use to describe it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so this kind of segues in. So we kind of addressed what we did. We addressed what happens when you have somebody who's convinced it's purely physical, but we know that there's a deeper layer to it happening. The flip side is we find this often in the TMS community or the mind body syndrome community is we are like, yes, it's this. We read and learn about all this mind body connection, and then it's almost like we veer so off to the opposite spectrum where we're like, no, it's all mental and emotional. It has nothing to do with the body. And we almost give ourselves permission to no longer address the body and do things that still could potentially have really awesome benefits. And so I guess, how do you, what thoughts or insights do you have when you get the person who almost develops resistance to any of these tools that actually can really be used for our benefit?
That's a great question. And I haven't found many people who are resistant to it, especially like to that as far as there, especially the population that I've been seeing for a long time is they're always looking a lot for the physical answer, where I don't see as many coming in saying, no, it's totally mental, right? Or it's totally in the mindset, the TMS, and that's why I'm so happy that I can be talking to your group, because I think some of them might fall into that, where it's all about reframing how we are approaching our health. And when I get adjusted, when I play basketball, whenever I do anything, whenever I lift weights, whenever I, go for a walk with my dog, it's never about treating, I guess I should say, or focusing on, okay, this is the problem. This is why I'm doing it. It's more of, I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to get better. I want to continue to function better, because that's what it's all about. If we can improve the function of our body and brain and the connection between it. And for me, function equals health. Health is the optimal functioning of your body. It doesn't mean, okay, I don't have any symptoms. And that's why I have to preface this with clients, with patients, with your audiences. And that's why the first part of my ABCs, the basics, is align. And it's align your intention with your attention. So first, like, what do you want? We have to know what your, I don't want to say goals, but your intentions are. And we work back from that. You can even use at a deeper level, like the 7 levels deep exercise. Are you familiar with that? Okay. So 7 levels deep is, so you say, okay, what do you want? What's your goal? Okay, I want to be out of pain, or I don't want to have low back pain. I want this low back pain gone. So that is the goal. So now we ask the question, why is it so important to you to not have low back pain? And then whatever answer they give to that question, okay, we ask, so why is it so important that you can walk? Let's say because I want to be able to walk. All right, so why is it so important for you to be able to walk? And then we just keep asking that question until we get to 7 times we ask that question to get to that deep layer of truly why do they want that? And that's the reframing process to where now it gets to be, I want to enjoy my life, or I want to, because I see myself being married and happy with 3 kids. that deeper level of that is the reason why they want it, not instead of the focus of getting out of pain. So then we can say, all right, that is the goal. So you want this in, whatever. I don't even give a time frame. It's just, I want it, like, as I did this exercise, why do I, want to make an impact in the world? Or why do I want to help people break free from the chronic pain? And I don't even like putting a number on it. It's because, one, it's for me, even selfishly, because I want to enjoy my life, and I know that will help to project that onto them as well. I want to enjoy my life. I want to set an example for my family and kids. I want to set an example because integrity is a big thing with me. I will never do something, or I'm sorry, I will never not do something that I would recommend to somebody else, if that makes sense. But yes, that's hopefully that answers your question a little bit. I want to see where they are and holding them accountable and reminding them, okay, this is why this is the whole retraining process, because we've been trained that if you have a symptom, especially if it's pain, it's a bad thing. Let's get rid of the pain. Well, let's create a lifestyle in order for you to achieve the goals and the performance and optimize that over and over again. So even if you're out of pain, even if you have this big aha moment, like let's say you listen to this, if you're listening to this and like you have this big aha moment, that's it. And something happens to where it's like a light bulb clicks. That's not, the journey isn't over. It's just beginning down that path. So that's the big thing I want people to understand is, what do you want? And then you have to align with what you want, with how you're being, the things that you're doing. And then you'll eventually have what you want to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a great explanation. I really like how you brought up that, to upgrade our function. And you said the word optimize, I think optimizing our function, optimizing our well-being, because we can definitely do enough work, enough work, inner work, outer work, whatever we need to get to this level of, okay, I'm pain free. So I'm okay kind of thing. But I wonder, are you pain free until the next thing shows up? And like you said, going back to the bucket, did you just eliminate the threat, or did you actually expand the bucket, the threshold? And so when I know for me, my personal thing is I want to upgrade and optimize my well-being always, forever, until my last breath. So for me, being like pain-free or symptom-free isn't enough. For me, it's like, okay, but I have this beautiful gift of a body. And if I do all the things from a mental perspective, a physical and a spiritual perspective, what can I accomplish and achieve, like in terms of my functioning, my well-being, my performance, what is possible? Like, I want to know what's possible, so.
I love that. That's man. I love how you paraphrase that. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah. And so I think something that you and I talked a little bit about off air that's so important is we do have these really wonderful tools that we have access to in the physical realm that often get a really bad reputation when sometimes we use them and they don't work initially. Well, there's a lot of reasons they couldn't work, because there were, as you said, stress comes in many factors: emotional, physical, chemical, trauma, different things. And so maybe we were just totally at like way beyond that threshold. And so something couldn't work in the way that it's designed to work. If maybe we need to calm our nervous system down, or calm our limbic brain down, or regulate our nervous system. And the thing that's great is sometimes we get into doing that mental work and we forget that some of these physical things can also be really productive and beneficial for that optimization part. And we can build some resistance to them. But yeah, I mean, just realizing like, oh, hey, these are actually really great tools and people have had a lot of success with them. Now that I've got that nervous system regulated, I wonder what taking some of these other steps as a form of self-care could do for me. And, something you said was you said that you reframe when you go to get like an adjustment, that you shift your mindset. You're not treating yourself, you're upgrading. And I think that way too. Like when I choose now to use self myofascial release or do my movement practice or do these things, I always remind myself, and if I choose to get chiropractic, for me, it would always be a reminder, hey, I'm not treating the pain. I'm not treating whatever the diagnosis is or whatever the said symptom is. I'm literally using this as a tool to just optimize my well-being.
Yes. And it's definitely a mindset shift, and it's not going to be overnight because, it's not like okay, I'm going to go the next time, or I'm going to go for my walk, or I'm going to do my myofascial release, my stretching, my mobility. And I'm going to take in with it this mindset of I'm doing it because it's going to optimize and upgrade my performance and my health and my function.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden the next day comes and you're sore and you got knee pain and like, that didn't work. It's you have to keep up on it. And that's where the different brain retraining programs that I know you teach and I teach, they're all very good, but it's a matter of actually doing the work. And you mentioned it way early on about most people want this quick fix. Well, the quick fix is actually doing the work. That is what the fix is. I don't know how long people, want to live, but I'm going to be here. I'm 46 years old this year. And guess what? I'm not even halfway through my life. I've already put it in my head. Okay. I'm going to live to over 100, not just live, but be living lifestyle, engaged and active with my wife and kids and grandkids and great grandkids, however many that we have. But in order to do that, so that's already the mindset I've been taking into it for the last 5-10 years. And so that with that mindset, it helps the actions that I take. Right. It helps the behaviors that I go into. And, but yeah, I'm not sure if I answered any of the question, if we were just having dialogue there, but yes, the retraining the brain part of it is such an essential aspect of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's all of it. When you look at, you mentioned trauma can come in the form of chemicals, which can come through products we use, things in the environment, foods we eat. I think it's so awesome that we have the power to use our brain we have the power to use our mind to shift our brain and teach our brain that we don't have to perceive a lot of these things in the world as threats anymore, right? Like we can actually teach our brain that these things don't have to have these detrimental impacts on us. And with that said, many of us through the course of our recovery journey still make new conscious choices. Like we might be able to heal old, say, food sensitivities. And with that said, maybe I get to a point where I can eat anything and I don't have a physical reaction anymore. And yet through that experience and journey, I might still choose most of the time to eat foods that are more serving to help sustain and optimize my well-being. Or, we might not have any sensitivities or reactions any longer to chemicals, but we might still choose to have a chemical-free household. So knowing though that when we're out and about and just living life, we have the resilience factor.
Exactly. We don't have to be afraid because we've set ourselves up for that little indiscretion or that choice without, being like, oh my God, this is going to give me a stomach ache, or I'm going to be horrible for the next week if I eat this. It's just enjoying the moment or enjoying what you're doing at that time, because how you feel about what you're doing also has an effect on how you feel physically, right? And that will definitely have an effect. So yes, just enjoy. But I also want to go back to set your body up for that, improving that threshold, increasing the size of that bucket to where, in thinking about it in terms of, we've said it a few times, upgrading, whatever word resonates with you, because that's a big part of it too. Resilience, again, that resonates with me. Upgrading, optimizing, those things, resonate with me. That's why I like my main core program is called Pain to Performance, because performance is another word that I'm just being an athlete and I don't even say ex-athlete. I'm not doing anything competitively right now, but I still play basketball. I still, like again, just being active in general, lifting weights, exercising, training. So you want to make sure that just keep going back to what do you want, keep it simple and consistent in that process to get where you're going. And sorry, I can go off on this for so far. And I know that's why I like this, because I knew this was going to be a great conversation and not just saying, okay, do this, this, and this. Although I know people want steps that they can do to, improve their function. And hopefully we're providing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was actually going to be one of my next questions, which was, what does optimized well-being or upgraded well-being or optimized function mean to you? And maybe you could share some samples or examples of like daily types of disciplines or action steps that people could take to support themselves in a holistic approach.
You know what? I'm actually going to start with, I've referred to it a little bit like ABCs. So that's the system or the framework I go by. So align your intention with your attention. I'm not going to go too much into that just because I know you teach that. I want to get more into the body part of it. Okay. Just because, but as a little summary, so that's journaling. So align your intention with your attention. It's journaling. So it's learning what language you're using. What story are you telling yourself about your health? What story are you telling yourself about symptoms or inflammation or pain that you've had, your genetics, what the doctor told you, what whoever, said something to you, what are you saying to yourself to bring that out of the weeds? Because that's in your unconscious mind, that's directing your habits, actions, and behaviors. Now, if you can't do that without like actually going into those weeds and just feeling horrible about yourself, like nothing's going to get better, maybe skip over that one for now as this, but then there's count your wins. And count your wins is the second part of the EYL system of the 4 pillars of mindset retraining or mindset training. So learn your language is 1. 2 is count your wins, which is it's not just positive thinking. And it's not really positive thinking at all. It's actually, another way to think about it is finding the evidence of how you are moving towards your goals every day. So if you are, because our brain, automatically focuses on what we didn't do. So now you're bringing into conscious awareness what you did do to move you towards that goal. So let's say it's to get out of pain. All right. So today and if you feel like walking is going to help you to be active your entire life, then, and you're getting back into a walking routine, and let's say you walked a mile yesterday, but then you only walked 100 yards today. Many times you'll say, okay, I walked a mile yesterday, but I only walked 100 yards today. No, you walked 100 yards today. It led you towards your goal. You didn't just sit there, and even if you didn't do anything with that, you say, all right, I took a day off from that. So you're finding the evidence of what you're doing leading you towards the goal that you're going for, your intention. Okay. And those are the 2 main ones I want to focus on there, just because they're definitely more actionable for the audience to implement. Definitely counting your wins. That is a big one. So how do you do that? What do you want? And then what is your goal or your intention? And then every night for 5 to 10 minutes, go throughout your day and say, how did I do that? How did I go towards accomplishing that goal? You don't have to have a time frame on it. It could be nutrition wise. It could be, your spinal health wise. It could be your meditation, all of those things. And no matter if you did it for 1 minute or 10 minutes, or, you had a green smoothie or you didn't, everything you want to focus on those wins and bring it into conscious awareness to retrain the brain. There's also review your direction and imagine your outcome. But I know we're getting short on time, so that is, I don't want to say a higher level, but that's, again, every direction that we have or the intentions that we have is evaluating those every 90 days or so. Do we need to change that as we evolve and as we grow? Because that can happen.
Yeah.
And then imagine your outcome is, we go through life imagining the worst so often. And so we're imagining, okay, but usually it's in the negative. So what do you want for your life? So that's like the 30,000 foot view. Okay. And then, so imagine your outcome is in health. What is that big outcome that you want? Is it, it could be like 5-10 years out. So the outcome is the 30,000 foot view. The review your direction is more of that, like looking down the road. It's at the end of the road. Whereas count your wins is the daily actions that you're taking to achieve that direction, or going in the direction that you're reviewing to achieve the outcome that you have set out. Okay. Mm-hmm. So those are the steps that we take, but they're steps, but they're all included in the same, it's not like, okay, we have to finish one and then do the other. These are ongoing processes, because that's how the brain gets retrained.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ongoing. Yeah. Over and over and over again.
It's funny. I say I wasn't going to explain it too much, but there's a lot more to it. But the next part is B, which is breathe, because breathing has a psychological, a biochemical, and a biomechanical aspect to it. Most people go through life, especially when they're in chronic pain, they breathe too much, like they breathe too shallow. They're not getting enough, I don't want to say enough oxygen in their body. They already have a lot of oxygen. All right. If you put a pulse ox on your finger, very rarely, unless there's a really big problem, does that oxygen saturation level go below 90% or 92%. But where we're not utilizing that oxygen is we're not creating an environment of a good balance between carbon dioxide, and I'm getting more into like the chemistry of it, but the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. So when we're breathing shallow, we're breathing not deep enough into our diaphragm. One, that affects our physical body. It also affects our mental body, the parasympathetic/sympathetic response. So a good tip for the listener for this is, so we had count your wins, right? I want everybody to count their wins every night, 5 to 10 minutes. The next thing is focus on your breathing. 1, breathe through your nose, close your mouth. And obviously I can't close my mouth now because I'm talking. Close your mouth and do nasal breathing. You want it light, okay? You want it slow, and you want it deep. And this is something that Patrick McEwen teaches in his Oxygen Advantage course and the Breathing Cure, both excellent resources. And it's by deep, I don't mean big, because the light part of it, so light, slow, and deep. You don't want to be able to hear yourself breathing. So it's not, or even see it. It should be down deep. When I say deep, it's in the diaphragm. So diaphragmatic. So when you breathe in through your nose, out through your nose. So for example, when you breathe in through your nose, your belly should go out. You should see your belly go out. When you breathe out, your stomach, your belly will go back in, because it's the motion of the diaphragm. All right, just to try to give somebody a picture of that. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the last part is C, which is conditioning your body. So you see all these play off each other, conditioning your body, especially your spine. And I love that question that you asked, 5-10 minutes ago, or what we were talking about is, if somebody comes into the office, or they're finally ready to accept that, okay, it's not just physical, it's mental, it's not just mental, it's physical, or both, is if TMS gets so hung up, if you get so hung up on that, like, well, it's got to be that. It's got to be just, it's in my brain. I got to keep working on my brain. And let's take this from a conditioning your spine aspect. If your posture is so bad, like if you're leaning over a computer, if you are looking at your phone and it's down in your lap, like I see so many people do, and they don't know it because it just becomes a habit. and your spine is stretched out, your spine is just so deformed that now we're putting stress and tension on your spinal cord, that spongy thing that delivers, it's an extension of your brain all the way through your body. It's not going to be able to release that power from the brain into the rest of your body. So if we don't address that, if you've been to the doctor, let's say, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and all of a sudden you're fully grown, let's say you were 5'8", 20 years ago, and then you've seen that, gradually go down, or let's say even 5 years ago, you were 5'8", and now you go to the doctor and you're 5'7". Why is that? That a lot of times is the postural distortions and imbalances that you have from maybe that kyphotic posture where you're leaning over, and everybody can just try this, where they're roll their shoulders, take their head forward. A lot of times I'm on video, so I can show people doing this, or I can show myself doing this, and even taking a deep breath in and out, or trying to take a deep breath in and out, and your lungs can't expand. Your heart has to work harder. So physically, it's just putting stress on the heart and the lungs, and on all these other organs too, but let's keep it with that. And then also what you can't see is it's putting stress and tension on the spinal cord, which is inside the spine, and it's not able to deliver those messages. So that's why I implore, and I've developed this system just to help integrate both of those aspects. We need mindset, we need breath, we need posture and spine, we need in conditioning. That also includes nutrition. That also includes, physical fitness, both posturally and then also general physical fitness, because we need that if we want to optimize our health. And then knowing how to address these symptoms if or when they come up. Guess what? I still get symptoms. I still get shoulder tweaks here and there. But when I do my shoulder exercises, for example, I'm in my brain, I'm saying, okay, this is to help the health of my shoulder. This is help to increase the function of it, not necessarily to stretch this muscle. I'm trying to stretch this muscle, or what exercise can I do for this hip pain or my low back pain? Let's just reframe it to, okay, what can I do to help continue to optimize the function and the health of my body? So in a nutshell, that's, in 45 minutes, we went over a lot right there. But yes, do you have anything to add, Jasmine? I'm sorry.
No, that's great. I mean, you're here to be the speaker. And I really appreciate that you just shared the ABCs and all of that with us. I think that is really practical, very simple things that we can incorporate into our day-to-day living and lives. And it's a lot of good points that are made. And there was something I wanted to say that you were saying about what you were saying at one point, but I lost it because that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
My brain gets filled with all these things. I'm like, I want to ask a million questions. But yeah, I think the reframing piece is a really big one. I know that's something I'm really passionate about, is we can approach things for optimizing our well-being to support our performance as we want to upgrade our performance and function. And it's all about how we reframe our mindset around why we're approaching certain things. For sure.
Yes. Why? Exactly.
And I know that we're near the end of your time here, but I wanted to know if I could ask you kind of one more broad question before I have you talk a little bit about how people can connect with you and what you're up to.
Absolutely.
So do you have a mission statement?
My mission statement is to help people break free from chronic pain and dependence on a broken system and be your own guarantee. That's the big thing, is just to help. Very similar to Our Power is Within, like your podcast, and that's why I was drawn to it, is be your own guarantee. We're looking for all these outside measures, outside things, and it's the power is within us. It's on us to run our own race, to experience and observe our own journey.
100%. What does be your own guarantee mean to you?
Oh man, that means taking accountability for every single aspect of my health and of my life. if you go through life saying it's, his fault or her fault, you're not, I go back to the Rocky Balboa speech. It's one of my favorite. If you're pointing fingers at him or her or him and blaming them for you not being where you want to be, you're going to be exactly where you are. I'm not saying that there's not circumstances and situations that aren't 100% in your control, but there's always something as part of that situation that is in your control and how you respond to it. So that's what it means to me.
I love it. And for people, I know they just got a little bit of you today, but if they are very interested in learning more about these programs that you are offering, like Pain to Performance, and, because I think that's great, because a lot of us, we end up with so much pain or chronic illness that we lose sight of the possibility. It's almost like we forget or don't believe that we could ever get to that point of being an athlete again or being a high performer. And so I think that sounds really intriguing to help us to remember that anything is possible. And I really like the tools that you gave. So if other people are resonating with this message, where can people find out more about what you're up to in this world and what programs you're offering? And I feel like you even have a book that you co-authored.
I've done some different master classes and summits, like the Leaky Brain Summit, the Superhuman Brain Master Class. The book is in the works, not yet, but that's in the works. But the best place, just so we can connect more on a deeper level rather than just going to my website, if you're on Facebook, I would say join my free Facebook group. It's called Be Your Own Guarantee, where hopefully Chasmith can attest to this. I'm in there. I'm an active. I do videos in there with these. If you're not on Facebook or if that's not your bag, then what I'm offering, the audience and listeners here, if you're listening here, is a house call with me. I'm not going to come to your house, but it's a virtual house call. And hopefully we can provide that link and the notes are somewhere. It's a 20-minute call with me. And the way I describe it is I come to the call, no preconceived notions. You schedule it on my online calendar, and we're just going to talk. And you can ask me any questions about your pain, any lifestyle issue that you're trying to implement, like with nutrition, with detoxification, with mindset, with spine, with breathing. And we're just gonna talk, and I'm gonna give you recommendations. If I feel like, this is a good fit for me, in one of my programs, I'll tell you about that. I have a huge network of other doctors that I can refer you to as well, that work with people all over the country and the world. So if it's not something that it's in my wheelhouse, then I can help direct you to them too. And normally it's $99 for a house call like this, but I'm doing it for your listeners at no charge.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's generous.
Oh,
I will definitely get the link from you and add that to the show notes for sure. And just to kind of close out, is there any final thoughts that you have or any last kind of message or advice that you would want to share with anyone listening?
So the formula is this: simple plus consistent effort over time will lead to sustainable success. You might have had short-term success in the past, but then slid down the slope. We all have. But the reason why is a lot of times we try to get too complex. We try to make things too complicated. We want to keep them simple, the basics. And that's why I call them the ABCs, because I wanted to keep it the most simple, basic thing. Simple basics repeated over time that give you the biggest bang for the buck, and keep doing those. I'm not saying that other things might pop up, but we always have to make sure we think well, make sure we breathe well, make sure we move well, and make sure we're showing up every single day.
I love it. Think well, breathe well, and move well. It's my jam right there.
All right.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today, and I'm glad that we got to connect and share this with the audience.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, you guys, that is a wrap. Thank you once again for being on this journey with me. If you have a story that you want to share, a message that you would like to spread regarding empowerment and possibility, or even if you have a request of someone that you would love to hear, on the show, shoot me a message and let me know. And this week, I hope you spend some time getting to know yourself a little better with your daily check-ins. And as usual, until next time, make this week great.